Interesting. If Jehu Garcia is around, I would love to have you come on up because Jehu's got a really cool perspective. He's been driving the Rivian, and I don't know, I was talking to him today when we were looking at the Cybertruck itself, and he wasn't, like all of us, I think our mouths were open and we were just like, this is the Cybertruck. But he wasn't, and I would love to get his perspective on it because he's a big EV guy.
Knock on wood.
There's Jehu. Come on up.
Hey.
I feel like you're not the biggest Cybertruck fan.
Aesthetically, I'm not the biggest fan.
What, you don't like the sweeping curves and the...
Okay, so when I saw it, I wasn't initially a fan, right? I think things grow on people, and so I think pretty soon it's going to be the norm, and people are going to accept it, right? But
I'm talking about you, though. Has it grown on you yet?
It's taken a while. I still not 100% on board with that. But of course, I haven't seen the production other than the one that was here earlier. And as you saw, I didn't go up close to it and was like looking at it and stuff.
Okay, but so to you, is it like the little intricate things that makes you love it or hate it, or is it just the overall aesthetic?
I think it was the overall aesthetic, but like as I was talking to you earlier, it's changed. The original Cybertruck was not the same shape as this one, the production, right?
It feels like the original was more of a pyramid, like more pointy,
yes, right? It was a bit grotesque, I would say.
You use the word grotesque, folks.
Sorry,
Jehu Garcia, everybody.
I know. There's a lot of fans here, but it's. There are other renders that I saw on the internet about cyberfying other cars, and I was like, oh my God, like that's amazing. So it's not, I think it was just the dimensions. I think that's what I was,
Is this just because you're a Rivian truck owner now? Ooh. And you've fallen in love with that oval light in the front?
Well, I did like the Rivian truck as soon as I saw it. And by the way, I didn't like the Rivian truck, I liked the Rivian SUV.
Oh, you like the R1S?
Yes, that's what I signed up for. But because they made us buy the truck first, so then we were all got to be the stupid truck, But I'm not really a truck fan, so I think that might be another reason why I'm not a huge fan of the Cybertruck. Because I have a truck, and then I have the SUV, and like I was telling you before, I'm a bigger fan of the SUV. And I think most people on the street are a fan of the SUV.
Well, let me stop you there. So you're not a fan of trucks in general. You're more of a van guy, right?
Yes.
I can say.
Minivan. Classic minivans.
Classic minivans. Yeah. When we started driving trucks, I found so much use for them. Did you do the same thing? Did you start throwing stuff in the back that you hadn't thought of before?
I want to say traditionally I would. I started in the trades. I'm a carpenter by trade.
Nice. Carpenters.
And so, for many years in my life, in a previous life, I towed around boxes of tools, and I would throw them in like a mini truck and stuff, And so, I think now I have a company, and we carry big, heavy stuff, and I have thrown big stuff on there in my fancy truck, Yes.
You mean you put it in very carefully?
No, I have dented, I've scratched the thing, you know what I mean? So now it looks like there's stuff that's been back there.
Oh, so you've dented up your truck?
Not dented it, but scratched the liner. The truck's not really for work.
No, it's for adventures.
It's for adventurous people. It's like it's a fancy car that looks like a truck. That's how I would explain it. Because trucks
with a very small bed.
With a very small bed. Trucks don't do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. So it's not really.
Can we talk about bed size for a second? So I don't want to get too personal, but but bed size on the Rivian, I think, is 54 inches, if I remember correctly. Whereas on the Cybertruck, we just learned it's going to be 72.
72.
Right. So I feel like there's a whole bunch of things I tried to put in the Rivian, and then we were like, oh, this doesn't fit without the tailgate down.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second. The 72 inches, where is that measured to? Is that the biggest dimension or is that the smallest dimension? Because in the back of the Cybertruck, if you've seen it, right at the bed level, goes all the way back. Then it comes to the cab section. There's no mid-gate, sad face. Comes up, but then it kind of angles in. So my question is the 72 inches just along the bed, which is helpful because if you're moving flat goods like plywood and stuff like that, that's good. But, if I want to store like a bike or something tall, is it going to be able to be 72 inches from the bottom to the top? So what dimension is it? Because maybe the bed's even longer. Maybe the bed at the bottom is even longer than it is towards the top.
That would be great. I mean,
and by the way, why 72 inches? Because if you're trying to put a sheet of plywood, well, that's not 72 inches. It's more like 84 or something like that.
Right. I mean, you're going to have to put the tailgate down. Right.
Yeah.
It's mainly because I think if you go for a full 8-foot bed and the crew cab, you're just talking very hard to park.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about parking. Rivian's pretty easy to park.
No, I find that without that camera, I'm terrible at parking. My wife is a lot better than me parking. Like, she's just pulls up in there. And obviously, she's driven the Rivians more than me. I got a truck only as a, hand-me-down kind of thing. I find it hard to park, especially in LA. The parking spots are small everywhere you go. And so, I think it's borderline. It's not as big as like a F-250 or something. Like, those are really hard to park. So yeah, it's doable, but it's not the easiest thing in the world. Going from a smaller Model 3, that's what we used to drive before the Rivians. It's a difference. Like, there's quite a bit of difference.
What about the rear steering? So on the Cybertruck, there's going to be rear steering. I don't know if that's going to be in all the variants or not, but rear steering seems like it could be a game changer in terms of not only towing, but just, tight turns and all that.
Yeah, I have found on the truck that it doesn't turn very tight, and I have had to do this Austin Powers thing back and forth. So I don't know if it's the same with the R1S. So the R1S is 1 foot shorter, so it does turn a little bit quicker. I think it's gonna be great on the Cybertruck that you have rear steering. I think it's gonna make a huge difference. It's gonna prevent you from having to do the.
All right, so you're one of those people who didn't quite buy into the look right away. That's fine. A lot of people didn't. But what I want to ask you is, how soon do you think it'll be before, or do you think that this will be true, that the kind of world will just start to accept this design and then want more of this design?
I think it's going to happen quickly. Like DeLorean, right? Which I think it has a similar aesthetic, similar materials and stuff. And I think had I been alive and an adult in the days when it shipped out in its first, I think I would have thought the same thing. It's kind of a stupid thing. Why is it like so square? Why is it like, where's the paint? Like I wanted in a different
Where's the
color.
paint?
Where's the paint? Like, come on. Like, I'm paying all this money and you don't even get a paint? Come on. But once we saw the movie
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, then we all became a fan of it. And I want to say that big portion of our fandom for that car is the movie. It's what makes us feel. Look, aesthetics are very important in cars. Like, I drive what is essentially the world's worst car. It's a 1950s VW bus. This is a terrible car. In like any way you look at it, it's a terrible car. But
people love it.
But we all love it because it's iconic, because we grew up with it, because aesthetically, it looks this little round little.
Was it in any kind of movies that made that way, or is it just that it's just so beautiful looking?
It was just in culture.
Yeah, in culture.
But I want to push back on the DeLorean, because if the DeLorean wasn't in Back to the Future, and let's say it was, a Corvette that Marty goes Back to the Future in, do you think everyone's going to remember, oh, that's the Back to the Future car? Or was it really smart of the filmmaker to choose the DeLorean? Because the DeLorean really encapsulated what a time machine car should look like.
Well, did you know that the filmmakers got approached by Ford and they got offered $75,000 if the time machine was a Mustang? And he said,
Doc Brown doesn't drive a f***ing Mustang.
So I want to say that because of the aesthetics, that's why we all agree. Because it's weird. It's supposed to be weird. It's supposed to be not a normal car.
So do you think if the Cybertruck was in some big movies coming up or something, that would do the trick?
Yeah, that would do the trick, I think, for the mass market. Although I don't think it needed. Look, I'm obviously wrong because there's a million reservations.
2.1 million.
Oh, two. Now, of course, I will have to say that it's $100. And, I mean, that's how much we spend on a fancy dinner, And so the commitment is...
Are you saying that there's people out there who aren't going to want their truck?
You're saying that there's people out there who reserved more than one Cybertruck that they might not buy?
I mean, for the same amount of money that it took me to reserve my Rivian, I could have reserved 10 Cybertrucks. So, yes, I want to say that there's going to be quite a bit of few people that are... Okay, because there's a lot of things that have changed, right, since then. The price has gone up.
We don't know.
Oh, we don't know.
We don't know.
But the price has increased. Because I don't think... Did we have a price way back in the day? Oh, we didn't. No. Okay, so you're just signing up to just a truck without knowing the price. So now that
Elon gave us some prices, but we don't know if they're going to be true.
No, we know they're not going to be true, right? Come on. Who are we kidding here?
All right, what do you think the prices are going to be?
I want to say they're going to be similar to Rivian. They're going to be 80, and then top trims are going to be 90, 100.
Oh, you think starting price 80?
75. Maybe.
75.
That's where
to
I
get
would
in
put-
under the federal tax credit.
Yes.
But you think that's the starting, like rear-wheel drive?
Yeah, I would say.
Interesting.
Okay,
Get it?
and we are going to the live stream now.
I was on the Joe Rogan show, and Joe bet me $1 that his armor-piercing steelhead arrow would go through the car. Now he owes me $1. How does it work as a real everyday truck? Well, here we have the future towing the future. There's something in the truck world called a truck pull. This is really the key test of how much power does your truck actually have. Let's see what happens. Can outpull an F350 diesel, has a massive towing capacity, massive bed. It's basically an incredibly useful truck. So let's take it to the racetrack and see how does the Cybertruck perform against a Porsche 911. And I should say this is an actual Porsche. We literally just got it from the dealer, 2023 Porsche 911. But wait, there's more. It can tow a Porsche 911 across a quarter mile faster than the Porsche 911 can go by itself.
You can just drive it to your house and bring it and put it in your bed.
I don't know how they lift it. You need well, it'd have to be on a
Some Tesla
crane.
bots.
Tesla bots. It'd have to be on a crane. But I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, come on
Jehu,
up.
come on up.
Jehu's got some ideas about the battery.
All right, so I don't know what I'm talking about here, but I just did some quick calculations, and in order to get 130 miles, it would have to be a battery about
Yeah, how much would it weigh?
about 26 kilowatt hours. If that's, of course, considering that the Cybertruck has an efficiency of about 200 watt hours per mile. Now I don't know how off I'm there, but
You think it's going to have that good an efficiency?
I mean,
200?
Yeah,
A Model 3 is like 230.
Is that too low?
That's way low.
Yeah, it's way low.
Okay, so then if that's the case, then the battery has to be bigger than that. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so we're talking probably
30 kilowatt hours, right?
So,
Okay, so
let's
how
say-
heavy is that?
that's
so
3
that
power
would
walls.
be, well,
Yeah, that's 3 power walls.
That's
right?
a lot.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
big.
So we're
I mean-
talking about 300, 400 pounds of batteries.
At least.
At least.
Right?
And in order to go on the bed, yeah, you could have it small, you know. Power walls are what, 14? Or what are they power?
Yeah, 13 and a half kilowatt hours.
So
So 3 of them.
It's a big bed. And you
I mean,
can put
I
it in
watched the
there.
guys install them, and like two
It
big
takes two
guys
big guys.
need to move a power wall, right?
You would need almost like a cherry picker, like
Yeah.
an engine hoist to be able to put it up there.
So that's kind of my point. Is like if you buy this thing, right? Then when you get it home, what do you can't get it out? It's in your bed for good.
Yes, unless you have a little tool that you can
Right.
pick it out, put it up. No, the other thing is that you could store it in your garage, and then it could be your power wall.
Okay.
It
so you
could be
get a
3
special
power walls.
crane in your garage. You need a hoist.
It could be 3 power walls. It
Then
doesn't
you
have
need-
to be a specialized battery.
So it could be, if it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 7, it could be 12.
It's the infinite range extender.
Well,
Now the other thing is, do we know what like someone else had said that it might just be something that you plug in there, and I was thinking, do we know what plug it has on the bed?
we don't know what plug, but we just heard that it's 1/3 of the bed.
We knew that there was going to be a maintenance hatch in the front half of the bed, right? We've seen this before. We didn't know what it was. We're like, is that storage? And they're like, no, it's a maintenance hatch.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, well, I think we know what the maintenance hatch is for.
So if it's just like a NEMA 1450, then it would be capable of 11 kilowatt power,
It's
right?
got to be DC. It's got to be direct.
good, yeah.
You're just plugging it onto the battery.
Well, not necessarily. You could do back, right? Because here's the thing: it doesn't have to. 11 kilowatts is nothing. You can't push a car, right? But it would be enough to supplement the
like
usage.
trickle charge the battery?
Yes. Yeah. Because it doesn't have to power the truck. It just has to put back in 11 kilowatts.
Okay, except
as you're using
and
it.
here's the only hole in your argument. It increases the 0 to 60, or it decreases the 0 to 60 time, makes
Oh,
the truck faster.
Then that would tell me that it is a high power
because
connection.
adding more
instead of-
weight to a truck and it somehow gets faster, the only way that happens is if it's pumping more amps.
unless the factor there, like it's traction, right? Like, so adding more weight would.
Adding more traction? I don't
'Cause
know
maybe
if
it's not
that's how
power.
physics
Maybe-
works.
Well, we don't know what's the limiting factor there. It might not be power. It might be traction.
You think it's just the track?
It's too
Okay,
light.
all right, maybe. But
Interesting.
I think that there's enough factors. There's the maintenance hatch, which I think is going to be the range extender battery hatch, where you're going to stick the range extender on, and then the fact that it gets faster. Those two things to me sound like you're going to take it to Tesla service. They're going to have a hoist. They're going to
then put it
lower
in
this
there.
battery in. Some guy's going to plug it in with some Anderson connector, some
Yeah.
beefy DC connection
Yeah.
to the battery pack, and it's just going to
Well,
be parallel.
Can I just conjecture something that popped into my head?
Okay.
What if certain superchargers have the extender available, and it's some kind of robot thing that lowers it into the bed of your truck?
So it's kind of like the original idea of Tesla,
of swapping
where they would
batteries.
where they would do the battery swap,
Yeah, it's almost like a Neo battery swap, but it's a more limited battery swap.
and it's a little bit. Do you think that it's easier if you're taking something out of the bed of a truck as opposed to having to take the battery pack out of the bottom of a car?
Yeah, especially if it's like 2,000
It's got to be, right?
pounds.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
you don't have to now dig underground, drive the car over something and align stuff. You're like, I mean, it could just be 2 dudes with a hoist and like some bolts, you know?
Yeah. Well,
I mean-
and by the way, I'm sorry to say this, but like again, he did this already, right? Like where they engineered
Yeah, they did.
a replaceable battery.
Yes.
They even had a station that would
Yep.
do it, and then
It just wasn't a
never
battery extender. That was the only difference.
But it never made it to market, right?
True.
I mean, every single Tesla Model S had the technology.
Yes.
It was never refined.
didn't need it
was never
because of the
used,
supercharger
never
network.
deployed. So this could be one of those things.
Yes.
And
right?
it does answer the question for towing that a lot of people have, which is, how am I supposed to tow with this truck? Now, that would get you, so we were saying maybe a range of like 230 miles.
Towing.
Towing?
Yeah.
Towing.
Yeah.
Because that's like,
At least
if you took 470 and divided by 2, so you could conceivably get a range that was something like that. But
It's usable. It's not as annoying as 150.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
230 is getting into the range where that's totally doable.
It's not
I
so
think
painful.
that that's like kind of standard supercharger travel that we're all getting kind of used to, where you're like in the 200-ish mile range, and it's like, that's a nice bathroom range, right? Where you go for a drive, and if you're staying hydrated during your trip, every 2 hours you're going to probably need to make a pit stop anyway. Not such a big deal to have to do that. Now let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
All right. What if this is a variable voltage pack. What if the voltage of the? I don't think this works, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. What if the voltage of the pack is normally 400 volts? So you could supercharge normally. Then you go to the special place, they add this on, and instead of it being in parallel, it's in series.
And it makes your pack 800?
It makes your pack 800, so therefore...
Okay, so it's... Sure.
It's totally doable. Yeah, I mean...
You think so?
Especially, it would
Because
work
then-
right now that we're in this transitional period.
Because
it would
then
be
what
an
you
easy
could
way to
do
it.
would be head to the version 4 supercharger, charge up at a 800 volt charging speed, which is going to be faster. And because the battery is actually larger and is now 800 volts, it could actually accept it. And so then you could, that would allow you to charge faster. I mean, of course, the battery pack could just be 800 volts, and then you add in parallel another battery.
But that would require, well, in order to charge in like the current chargers, 400 architecture, right?
Right.
You would require to have like a DC to DC, like the Porsche or whatever, and
Right.
that's really an efficient way of doing that. So you would think that the Tesla engineers would be smarter than that and just do that. That's
This
really
is a big
easy.
question, though, because like you're saying, so the Porsche Taycan right now has a 400 volt battery pack. It can pull into certain DC fast chargers, 800 volt fast chargers, and charge at high rates of speed.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought it has an 800 volt pack. And
That's
then,
what I said. No?
Oh, no, you said 400.
You said
I'm
400.
sorry.
Yeah,
I
okay.
meant it has an 800 volt pack. It can pull into some 800 volt chargers and get that full speed.
Yeah.
But if it pulls into a 400 volt charger, it has to go through a DC-DC converter, which is
Yeah.
way slower.
Yeah,
so now we're talking about the Cybertruck. Most of the superchargers, the version 3 and version 2 superchargers that we see out in the world normally, they are 400 volts.
Yeah.
And so the Cybertruck
Future.
would have to pull into that.
Yeah.
And it would need a DC to DC converter in order to get the full DC, like to get as much power as it could. But normally a DC DC converter isn't going to be rated for the hundreds of amps that
So
it
the thing with the
normally is
DC to
gonna
DC, it's basically a charger. It's basically with the thing that we plug
Yeah.
in there. So it's a giant box. And in order to be 400 kilowatt, I mean, it has to be that big. That's why
Yes.
those things are that big. So that's why you can't have just an onboard piece of equipment that you only use just when you're going to charge in certain chargers. It just doesn't make sense, right?
Now let me ask you this other question. So let's say that we have our supercharger pack and it's 800 volts. If I take a samurai sword and I slice that pack in half in just the right spot, don't I have two 400 volt packs?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's usually just the series count of batteries. So
Yeah.
right now the standard was 96. Now I think Tesla's with the Plaid is like 108 or something like that. So you just have two of those and it'll be 200 cells, 220.
Now, if I had a big old clunky switch and I could go clonk, and now all of a sudden they're separate packs,
contactors.
I could charge it either at two supercharging stations or just split the power from one.
Yeah, you would just disconnect and reconnect.
And now I don't need the DC
The
to DC
Teslas have
converter.
this already. They have contactors. So
Right.
when you plug in your charger at home, it's
And you
an
hear
AC.
it go clunk, that's the
it
contactor.
disconnects that
Yeah.
battery from the plug, and it
Yeah.
connects it through a DC to DC, which is the onboard charger.
That's interesting.
And then when you plug it into a supercharger, it just reroutes it. So we all that technology is existing in the vehicles already.
Right.
And so that is not actually hard to do, to have two battery packs. And
Okay,
then-
so going back to the range extender, we're just thinking of it in terms of extending the range of the truck, but what about when we power our homes, which he didn't talk about today?
Yes, but is a feature that they said they're going to do.
Exactly. So now this range extender is also a home range extender in the sense that you would be able to have more days,
True.
with power outage.
Yeah.
And so that could be another whole piece of this that he doesn't want to get into right now. Now I'm starting to understand. The Cybertruck is bigger than I even thought.
And let's talk about the bidirectional charging. I mean, we talked about it just a little bit. So
He
it's,
was against it because it said it wasn't feasible. It wasn't.
people wouldn't want to do it
Don't
because
wanna
it would
do
it would
Use up a cycle of your battery, right?
Also, like, what happens if you're like, oh, I need to power my house, but I also have to go to the store. And then it becomes this
Sure.
bullet thing.
Let me ask you this. So we've got 3 versions of the Cybertruck, right? If I want the beast mode, I probably have to have a lot of nickel in those batteries, right? It's probably a different architecture than if I want the lowest variant. Maybe those are LFP, and if those are LFP,
It could be.
I can cycle them more, right?
Yes, traditionally those have way more.
So if
life
I can
cycles.
cycle them more, maybe that's the choice for people who don't really want a performance truck but want to be able to, power their house.
Yeah.
So the dual motor. So you're saying there'd be a difference between the dual and beasts mode
Yeah.
and the single motor.
Yeah.
It's possible.
I mean, the batteries would weight around the same, but
Yeah.
they would have less capacity, but it would have a longer lifespan. And you could definitely plug in. Although, didn't they say that the two-way bidirectional thing is only on the top models? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's still
I
that
don't know. There's so
enough
many
info.
questions there.
There's so
Too many
questions.
unanswered questions. By the way, I was only off by $15,000 in the price, right?
All right. Hey, good for you.
So I was closer, but not right on. Yeah.
What
so
number did you say?
Yeah. What
I
was your
said
prediction?
I said they would start at around 75 and then would go all the way to 120 or 115 or something.
Okay, so it's even better than what you thought.
Right.
Yeah. I was
That's
$15 less, so
Yeah.
they're more expensive than they announced, but not as expensive as I thought it was going to be.
Nice.
And maybe that's the thing. Like he does have a card up his sleeve, right? Because maybe manufacturing is not as expensive as everyone else, Rivian and Ford have to deal with, and so now he's like, yeah, but it doesn't make sense to just slash the prices. We'll leave that as we can create more.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that tell all these people that you can buy a truck when we can't deliver, right? It's also, I mean, you don't want to piss off a bunch of people because they can't get it. I mean, you've been waiting how long for that truck?
I know. 4 years. Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
And that's a long time to
That's
wait.
a long time to wait.
That's a long time to ask her. She waited 4 years for her
I know.
car.
It gets to the point where you almost don't want to think about it. Because
Yeah.
like it's not fun to wait that long.
Yes. Yeah. And also, yeah.
Well, thank you, Jehu. This
Okay.
is great.
So
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to just a
We'll
little bit
probably
of
have you
battery.
up here again when the next battery question comes up. Thank you so much, Jehu Garcia, everybody. Thank you.